Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. If you haven't listened to our first episode with Evelyn, Never Happy, I definitely recommend starting there. She opens up about the happiness she thought marriage and motherhood would bring, only to find herself face to face with depression instead. It's a powerful conversation and really sets the tone for what we're doing here. Today, although, we're shifting the focus to me, Miranda. My story has its own emotional twists and turns, and I'm truly grateful to have you here to hear it. So, with that being said, thank you for being here, thank you for listening, and let's get into today's episode.
When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I thought, what words can I use to summarize my life? And I chose 3 words, and it was family, fear, and food. We've lived through so many things being first-gen Mexican Americans. I really think at the end of the day, we have a family. Like, so many people out there don't have a family. Like,
Right.
they don't have anyone to lean on. They don't have anyone to talk to. They're just going through the motions of life just on their own. I love my family, even though we're a very dysfunctional
Yeah.
bunch. But you know what family is it?
There's a lot of love there.
Every family has, you know? But yeah, we are a family. At the end of the day, I really do feel like there's so much love there. Like, and now that I have my own family and you have your own family, I've been doing so much of the work to not repeat those things. One day I sat down because I had a homework assignment, and part of the assignment was, what are some ways you want your life to be different? One of those really big things was I don't wanna create an atmosphere that feels difficult.
Yes.
I don't want my kids to come home to a hard house.
Yeah. Be scared of feeling or
I don't want my kids to feel uncomfortable in our house because the world is just so hard already that then you come home and then you come home to a hard house, and it feels like it's never gonna get better. And I vividly remember feeling like that. I remember after you had left and our other 2 sisters left, and it was just me, mom, and dad, and I just never wanted to be home. I always wanted to be somewhere else, and I remember at that time, I had just met my best friend, and I, like, lived at her house.
Yeah.
Like, her house was insane. She has 30 siblings, and her house was always so full of love, and it was always so happy, and her mom was, like, always cooking food, and it was just so happy.
And at this point, you lived in the big house.
I remember being in high school, and no one knew that we lived in a huge house, and no one knew that my parents had a business. No one knew how well off my parents were because they busted their entire lives working to be able to provide that life for us. And I never really shared that with anyone, and no one knew that part about me. And I remember I turned like 16, and I invited my friends over, and they walked in and they were like, "What is this? Like, where do you live here? Are you a princess?" And I remember all of these people saying, "Oh my gosh, you live the perfect life." And deep down, I was like, "You don't know the half of it. You don't know what goes on in this house." I sometimes even feel like even though my parents, by the time they got to me, were so much more evolved than you and our oldest sister, like,
Oh, yeah.
it was such a different dynamic. I am obviously very grateful for that. The saying is right, no 2 siblings have the same parents, and by the time mom and dad got to me, they were like, "Man, raise yourself. Like, we've gone through 4 of you, like, you raise
Yeah.
yourself." And I didn't grow up in that, like, packed house with everyone, because I remember before you got married, we lived in the old house where we all shared a bathroom, all 4 of us and our cousin, we all shared a bathroom. I remember that part of my life being so happy. The house was full, everyone was happy.
Every weekend, my cousin would come and stay with us from Friday after
Mhm.
school to Sunday at night, and we would just have the best time
And Mountain Mike's Pizza and
on the grill.
on the grill, and it was just so fun. And then he ended up leaving, moving back home, and our sister ended up going to college. You ended up getting married, and our other sister was struggling with some things, and I remember just being there, just going through the motions. And it just always stuck with me, the difference of atmospheres in the houses. And Like, I wanna create a happy house. Like, I wanna create a house full of happiness, full of just, like, the best memories, because really that's what sticks with you at the end of the day. Like, yeah, obviously, I remember some of the bad stuff, but the good stuff, like, that is just ingrained in me, and
Yeah.
sometimes when we have, like, pool parties or something, or I see the kids in the pool, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that just takes me back."
It's like remembering Halloween.
Yeah,
And that
wow.
because Halloween was one of the best holidays because we would all go trick or treating with a pillowcase. We would go around the neighborhood and
I just really wanna be like that source of comfort at the end of a really long day, because at the end of the day, even if you have, like, the best relationship with your kids, you don't know everything that they're going through, and you don't know, like, if someone's picking on them at school or if someone's giving them a hard time or if they just feel just unhappy, and you don't know that unless you create an atmosphere that's safe and happy. But yeah, going back to my 3 words of life, I just always remember having this fear of just either living my life or letting someone down or just failure in general, because we grew up in an atmosphere where failure was not an option,
right.
and especially being women, we could not fail. We could not be submissive. We had to be firm,
Yeah.
and if we weren't doing that, we were letting them down, and that always stuck with me, that fear of failing. And I remember a pivotal time in my life was when my dad bought me the first car.
The
I rem
Jeep.
Yes,
It was a
the
red
red
Jeep.
Jeep. I remember at that time, I was working my first job at, the dinosaur
Oh,
theme
yeah.
park, and I was working my first job, I was busting my butt, I would go to school, and then I would walk to work because work was probably a 20-minute walk from the house. So I would walk to work, every day after
Wow.
school and weekends. I didn't need anything, like,
Yeah.
I just wanted a reason to leave the house, and my reason to leave the house was going to work. And I remember every single day after school, get home, eat, leave my backpack, and go to work, because we got out of school at 3 and I had to work at 4. And I remember we had these disgusting, like, glow in the dark green shirts. There was me walking down the street, and I remember one day, I walk up and I see a brand new car in the driveway.
Oh,
I remember I see our aunt's car, my mom's car, and that red car, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder whose car that is." So I walk in, and when I walk in, everyone is waiting for me in the dining room, and then my dad, the most, like, obvious person ever, was sitting there laughing, sitting there
I
laughing
can imagine that so vividly.
with his arms crossed, just laughing. And then I was like, "Oh, whose car is that?" And then he's like, "I don't know. Let's go see." And then I go outside and he hands me the keys and he's like, "Here, your
Aw.
present." Yeah, they did the best they could. Oh, they did. I remember in that moment, I was so happy and I was so proud of them. You got to a point in your career where you can buy your daughter a brand new car. That's insane. And I remember I was so grateful, and I just told him, "Thank you so much, and I'm not gonna let you down." And he just, being him, was like, "Oh, okay."
The thumbs up emoji.
The thumbs up emoji. I just remember sitting in that car, and I felt such a high. I just remember feeling like I could just escape to anywhere. I just felt so free, and obviously, we'll get into it more on Patreon, but during that time, my sisters was going through a really hard time, and I remember just not wanting to really take up that much space because she was going through a really hard time, and I remember just being so alone, and at that point, you were married and our other sister didn't live in the state, and I remember us having so many sleepovers
Yeah.
during that time. So many sleepovers, like, all the time, and now you're really happy at other house. I would sleep over at your house all the time, and I would sleep over at my friend's house all the time, and I was just anywhere that wasn't that house,
Mhm.
because that house was just so sad. And I don't think I've ever told you that, but, oh, that saved me from being so depressed. I remember some nights I was just like, "I don't wanna be here." I would hear them, like, just, like, fighting, or I would hear, like, all of this, like, commotion outside of my room, and I just did not wanna be there. And at that point, I didn't have anyone else that I could, like, go run to their room because there was only 4 of us, so there was nowhere else to go, and I just always remembered, I just wanna wake up tomorrow and just go to school, like, I just wanna wake up tomorrow and go to work or, like, go see my friends, and that was just such a sad time, and I feel like everyone's life, like, I feel like that was a sad time just all around. That was just a really big moment in my life, was having just that token of freedom, and lastly, and most difficult conversation, but food. I remember food being such a big part of our life, and now that I'm a parent, I see so many videos that I get so triggered of people telling you, like, you should for your kids that they have to eat everything on their plate because that creates just a bad relationship with food. And every time I see those videos, I just get so uncomfortable because we grew up in that atmosphere where it was, "You have to finish everything on your plate," or "Other kids don't have food, so you have
Yeah.
to eat all of the food," or, just the constant, "Are you eating enough or are you not eating?" Like, "You look too thin, you should be eating," or "You look overweight, you should stop eating." Just especially being women, we grew up with those comments about our body all the time, and I remember going to Mexico and just everyone commenting like, "Oh, you look so thin," or maybe you should go on a diet," or "Let's do a diet together," or just
Our childhood revolved around diets and
yes,
crash diets
yes, crash
and
diets.
these schemes that, don't work, but you'll try anything. It was never around healthy diet and exercise,
Never, ever,
ever.
ever. I remember my mom had this pink book called Lose 17 pounds in a week. It was never just eat clean or eat your vegetables and you'll be healthy or let's go on a walk. It was never that. It was, how can I eat cabbage soup for a month and lose 20
Yeah,
pounds?
the tuna diet
The
where all you
tuna
eat
diet,
is
oh my god.
tuna. When we were growing up, because our house was the party spot, we always had junk food.
Oh, everywhere.
Always, everywhere. It was a free for all for us. And although, as a kid, we thought, "This is awesome. We can have whatever we want," chips, cookies, ice cream, everything, but at least for me, it made me grow up with a very bad relationship
So bad.
with food.
Yeah, me too. The same way you talk about your depression, like that's how I have felt for the longest time about food. And I remember talking about this in class recently that eating disorders and addiction to food is one of the deadliest addictions you can have because you have to eat. Like, you
Yeah.
have to eat to stay alive and you have to eat to function as a person. But what do you do when the food just takes over or your mind just takes over and you just eat to silence your mind? And I just remember struggling with food my whole life. And that's something that I've never talked about, and not even to myself or in
Yeah.
therapy or anything, and it's something that I've worked on so much this past year, my relationship with food. I have really been trying to amend it, and since January, I've lost almost 60
Wow,
pounds from diet and
congratulations.
exercise, not
Healthy, the
just
healthy way.
not crash
The only
diet.
way that actually
Yes,
works.
exactly, that I didn't want to accept. It's been so hard to understand that relationship with food and so hard just to know why I turn to food or why I let it have such a hold over me. I just keep reminding myself that, growth isn't linear and that my goal of having a healthy relationship with food is attainable even in this family that we live in. I remember being overweight my whole life, and even now, I just think, like, are there people out there that don't think every single day, "Oh, I hate how I look," or, like, don't think, "What am I gonna eat today?" or "What am I gonna, like, snack on today?" or, like,
Yeah.
are there people out there that actually don't think like that?
You're out
If you're
there.
out
We
there,
would
let me
love
know.
to talk to you
Yeah.
because we've both been through a lot of weight loss, and I still look at myself and I still can't accept liking the way that I look.
Yeah.
And you've lost a lot of weight. And I can only imagine after battling this, making choices every single day
Yeah.
to make these changes. And then do you feel like, "Oh, I like the way that I look
Oh,
now?"
no. No.
Okay, let me rephrase this. Do you feel better
Oh, yeah.
than
Oh,
how you were at the beginning of this journey?
oh, yeah, I feel so much better. I feel it in my body. I feel it when I go up a flight of stairs and I don't get tired.
Yeah, from what I remember correctly, you started only with diet.
Yeah, I started only with diet. I didn't incorporate exercise at the beginning because of postpartum. And then after, I really just wanted to focus on my relationship with food. I didn't want to overwhelm myself because that's where I've always failed in the past, is where I wanna, 7 days a week of gym and every single day eating
It's a
under. Yeah,
perfectionism mindset that we have.
exactly,
If it's either all or nothing.
exactly. Like, every single day, if I don't eat under 1,200 calories and go to the gym, then I failed, and then I don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
What's the point? I'll try again next week.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the mentality that I've really been trying to get out of, and I wanted to establish a healthy relationship with food before I incorporated exercise. Now I'm at a point in my journey with food that I don't let it have a hold on me, and I don't give in to my addiction as frequently. And obviously, I have the food noise all the time. And for those of you that don't know what food noise is, you constantly think about food and you constantly think about eating. And that is just what used to destroy me because I used to think about it and then eat it. Or I used to think about it and then, I want McDonald's. I'm just gonna go buy it. And I'm not gonna think about it. Or I would just eat so much food in one sitting and think, "Oh, I'm not gonna have it tomorrow, so I'm just gonna eat all of it right now."
Yeah.
And that's what would destroy me. That's what really got me. And I this year really wanted to focus on healing that. And I feel like I have for the most part. I don't give it as much power and I don't label food as good or bad. I just think, if I want it, I'll have it. But if I don't want it, I don't need it. And not being forced to eat just because someone offers it, because the reason I gained so much weight was because when I started dating my husband, he would invite me to dinner, but then my mom would also make dinner, and I didn't wanna say no to either person, so I would have both dinners. Because our mom, is very sensitive, and I didn't want her to think that I didn't wanna enjoy her food,
Yeah.
but I didn't wanna tell my husband I didn't wanna go to dinner, so I would end up having 2, and that's how I gained 20 pounds. And shortly after that, I moved abroad
Oh,
to
yeah.
Rome, and man, I was
Yeah,
eating
you're in
all that.
Rome.
I was eating everything.
Yeah.
That food was so good, and I ended up gaining 10 more pounds. Well, by the time I got pregnant, I was already 30 pounds up than I was when I was in high school, and I was really in denial about that. I was super in denial about having gained weight, and I remember seeing that on the scale and just thinking, That's not true.
Yeah.
No, can't be. What are you talking about?" And then I got pregnant and eating everything in sight to deal with the fact that I wasn't the happiest about being pregnant. And there goes another 30 pounds. And by the end of my pregnancy, I was 223 pounds,
Wow.
which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
That is, to me, current day, it's crazy to think about. And this past year, I've really done the work, and now I weigh, 160, which is what I weighed in high school. Obviously not my goal weight, but it's I'm back to where I remember being the happiest with my body, and it has been, the longest journey, and I feel like it has taken forever to get here, and I'm not stopping. I just feel like right now I'm giving myself so much more grace because I never thought I would get here. I never thought I would ever get to a place where I would actually lose weight.
You are so strong because we'll go to our mom's house and she is, like, on top of you,
Yeah,
like, "Are you gonna eat? Did
yeah,
you eat? Or come on, like, just have one." And you are a lot stronger than me because
yeah,
I still have a lot of shame, and I still can't say no.
mhm,
So I'll go and I'll eat, maybe not as much as I used to, but, I'll eat even though I know that I shouldn't or that it's not part of my lifestyle. For me, it's still really hard to say no, but I know that
yeah,
you are really
yeah,
firm in your, "No, I
yeah,
don't want to eat."
yeah, and it's been the hardest. I don't know if you experienced this with your husband at the beginning, but it's the hardest, especially when your partner isn't on a diet. And I remember my husband always telling me, "Why don't we just order street food so we don't have to cook?" And I just had to learn how to be so firm with him and say, "I'm gonna eat whatever we have here." So
that has helped me be more firm with my mom. But
At the beginning, and even sometimes now, you would bring your own food
yeah.
to family
Mhm.
dinner. So you
Yeah.
would you and our other sister sometimes too would bring your own food so that, you could still be a part of the conversation, but you have your own food because you have your goal that you're trying to meet. And the side comments and the side looks, because I think that growing up, this idea of if you're losing weight, it must be because you're doing something that's not safe. And so the fact that we're just eating better and exercising is just something that nobody can understand in
Yeah.
our life.
Yeah. I was always the, "Are you taking Herbalife?"
Herbalife or pills
Or
or what are you
pills, yeah.
doing?
It was always that. And, yeah, I feel like right now, I don't put so much emphasis on the comments anymore. It's just kind of just thinking, they just don't understand.
Yeah.
And really getting to the place where it's like, I'm not the problem. The culture is the problem.
Yes, it's the culture that we grew up in, and it's weird, right? Because all anybody ever wants is for you to lose weight, and then you lose weight, and they're
Exactly.
and they're like, "Well, don't eat healthy food and don't go to the gym or just don't do your diet today," but then you start to gain weight, and then you get the comments of, "Why are you gaining
Yep.
weight?" It's like, "Oh, because you don't let me do the things that I need to do to lose weight in a
Yeah.
healthy way."
Well, like I said, a big reason that I'm able to film this now is because recently, after having a baby, getting married, and starting my master's program, I keep thinking about our PV lady days.
Yes, the
We
best
would
time.
spend like 10, 12 days at the beach and getting just drunk off of reggaeton in the club,
The
the
6
old school reggaeton.
Yeah, we would go to the clubs, and we would have to get kicked out because we would
Yeah.
stay until they closed at 6 AM, and we would stay until 6 AM, and they would have to ask us to leave.
But we would think the club was full of people,
Yeah.
but really everyone that was there worked there.
Yeah, it was the
And
workers.
and we would think, "Why are you closing the club? There's still
There's
so
so
many
many
people."
people.
But really, they were like, "Can you get these girls out of here,
I wanna
please?
go
I wanna
home.
go home." Man, I miss that so bad sometimes, and I find myself remembering that, and I find myself remembering when I lived abroad. I remember moving abroad, and I was like, "This isn't happening. Like, what am I doing? I'm leaving home." And like you said in the beginning, in our culture, you don't leave home until you get married.
Right.
So for me to move, but then to move to another country was insane. I remember my mom being so supportive,
Yeah.
where I think if our first sister had done that, she would have not been as supportive, I feel.
Yeah, and I feel like my mom, I think, struggles a lot because I remember when I told her I was getting married and she was trying to talk me out of it. Her and
Mhm.
my dad really didn't want me to get married, and that seems kind of shocking to me because,
Yeah.
in our culture, that is so common. But my mom, I think she really wanted us to have a different life than she did. And by me getting married at the same age she got married, she was not wanting that for she didn't want that for me. And although she never really told me why, like, it wasn't like "I want more for you" or anything. It was just like, "Please don't do this. I want you to finish university. I don't think that you're ready for this." And, of course, I never talked to them about, why I wanted to get married. So I do think that all of these things, in life, like you living abroad or us going to college, like, these are all the things that she would have wished for herself that she
Yeah.
didn't get to experience because she got married at 19, and then correct me if I'm wrong, she had all 4 kids by the time she was 32.
Yeah.
So she didn't get to live those things. And
Mhm.
so she she wanted to kinda live through us.
Yeah. I feel like she gets, like, such a high off of it,
Yeah.
and well, both of them, I feel like they both do, but when I was just thinking about moving abroad, which goes to our theme of, like, we don't like doing things alone,
Yeah.
I was originally gonna go abroad with my friend. We were both super set on it, and we were both just super convinced that, this is our time to go, and we had become really, really good friends in college. And I remember we were getting ready to submit our applications, and she tells me, "Actually, I'm not gonna be able to go. I haven't saved up enough money, and I am not gonna be able to go." And I remember just being so defeated. Then, I'm not gonna go either.
Yeah.
If you're not going, I'm not going. And I remember telling my mom about it, and then I was expecting her to just say, "Oh, well, don't go. It's gonna be dangerous by yourself." And she just told me, "You have to go."
You have to go by yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do that. How are you gonna not go? And that gave me just the energy I needed to just, say, "Let's just do it. I'm gonna go." And if I don't get accepted, you have to apply. You have to
Yeah.
apply, and you have to have the grades for it,
Mhm.
and you have to show that you're not just going to party, like, you're going to
Right.
school. And I thought, if I get in, I'll go. And if I don't get in, I'll just apply next year. And I remember at that point, all of the money I had earned from working at the dinosaur place, I still had it saved.
Oh, nice.
And I just thought, I have the money, I have the ability, because some people don't have the ability to go, because of citizenship, they can't go. And I just thought, this is my time. So I applied, I got in. I remember my mom and dad taking me. They flew to Rome with me to drop me off. And then they left me, and I was like, where are you going? And I obviously stayed in our college housing. So the college rented us an apartment, and it was not in the best part of town. And I remember my mom and dad driving with me in a taxi to drop me off at my apartment. There were like gang tags
Oh
everywhere. Oh my god, his eyes were just like wide open. He's like, "This is where you're living? Like, you can't find anywhere nicer than this?" He was like, he could not believe. And he dropped me off, and he was just like, "No, no, how are you gonna live here?" And I was like, "Dad, it's gonna be fine. You have raised us to be so independent."
Yeah.
I was like, "You did not create traditional women.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to create traditional women, you failed."
Yeah,
Because
you
we
failed
are
miserably.
because we are not traditional women. And you raised us for this. And now it's my time.
Yeah.
And I was living with 3 girls. And they were all so nice. They were all so fun. Every day I would just walk to school, have class, walk around, casually see the Coliseum on my way home. It just felt so surreal. And I didn't actually believe I was there until months after. And I remember just calling my mom and just saying, like, "You guys made it."
Yeah.
I remember I called my mom and I told her, "Look at what you guys have done. Look at what you have accomplished. This is just insane." And I never imagined a life where I was this happy. And the same as you said, like, I had never really felt happy. And I remember sitting there and just thinking I could do anything in life. And I rode that high for so many years. I, at that moment, didn't feel fear. That was such a pivotal time in my life because one of my core values, always feeling fear, was just gone. Like, it was out the window. I didn't feel any fear. I didn't feel any anxiety. I just felt so free. And that was just the start of a beautiful story of just not caring. And as the youngest daughter, I was always so scared of what my mom and dad thought of me. I was always so scared of, I never want my mom to feel lonely. I never want her to be alone. And I felt the responsibility of always having to be there for her and always having to support her and talk to her and really be there. And at that moment, I really just understood that I have a life to live and we only get one shot.
Yeah.
And and there is just no more time to waste. So that has been in my head at this moment because I'm not that 20-year-old girl living abroad anymore, and I'm not that, like, 16-year-old girl dancing on the streets of PB, which, yes, we know 16 is too young for partying, but
We'll bleep that out.
it was another time, okay? It was another time.
It was the Paris Hilton era where there was
What?
no cell phone. People weren't recording. There was no TikTok. People weren't posting stuff on their
Now we can't go
stories.
out without ending up on
I know.
Instagram.
Every time we go to the club, we end up on Instagram.
But, yeah, and I just have really been thinking that I'm not that girl anymore, but this is like a whole new chapter, and this is gonna, like, start a whole new chapter of our life. And even though I've been thinking that, it's been really hard for me to think that the next chapter is gonna be better or the future is gonna be brighter, as people like to
Yeah.
say. And like we said in the preview, this isn't an Everything Happens for a Reason
Don't
podcast.
believe that.
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
we're not super enlightened people, and we're realistic. And the reality is sometimes I miss that life so much. sometimes I can close my eyes and feel like I'm there. I turn on a song and I just feel like
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
there.
if we put on any reggaeton
Any
2016, like,
any
any reggaeton from that time, it brings us
My whole
right
body
back
shakes.
to there.
Yeah. I just sometimes just miss that life so much, and I miss that life before I got married, before we decided to have kids, and obviously that doesn't mean I don't love them. They're my motivation to keep going, they're my motivation to go to school, but I just miss every step not being calculated, and I miss every day not looking the same, like, that is where sometimes I feel like I'm going insane, where I'll wake up every day and get my daughter and get her dressed and feed her breakfast, and feed myself breakfast, and every single day is just the same, and sometimes that really gets into my head because I remember being 14 to, like, 19 years old and being the craziest girl ever, and I was everywhere, and I just didn't care about anything. I didn't care about what people were gonna think of me because even though I had that fear of failure, I have never had that fear of what are people gonna say about me? Or, like, in Spanish, like, el qué dirán.
Yeah.
I was never worried about that, and obviously, they don't want people talking bad about me, but I never let that drive my life, and at that point in my life, 14 to 19, you and our oldest sister had moved out. It was my mom and dad were putting all their energy to our 3rd sister, so I was kinda just coasting. I was, like, coasting and, no one was telling me what to do, no one was checking up on me, no one was telling me what not to do, like, mom and dad really never got involved in my life, and unless they, like, either found something out about me or, like, I was doing something wrong,
Yeah.
but in reality, like, I was kinda just coasting, and I got so used to not being cared about or, like, not really seen that which leads me to my next theme. I got so used to looking for interest in the worst possible guys. I remember just going after guys that did not care about me or, like, did not show me any love, and there I was going back for more. There I was always going back to, like, guys that I knew were not good for me, and I look back at it now and, like, I just wanna hug that girl. Like, I just wanna tell her, "Don't do this."
We just wanted attention
Yeah,
from anywhere
yeah,
because we
exactly.
weren't getting it anywhere else.
Exactly, and I just remember wanting so much love, but expressing that or telling someone that was not appropriate, like, I could never tell mom and dad, like, "I want more love,"
Yeah.
that just wasn't appropriate, so I just buried it, and I buried it with guys, I buried it with food, I buried it with other activities. I was really just numbing myself at the end of the day, and I recognize now as an adult, I spent so many years not knowing what feelings were, not knowing how to name feelings, like, I was just always angry.
Yeah, I think that is something that I've talked to you when we went to this interesting hotel in Cancun
Oh,
when I
yeah.
was pregnant, and talking to you and our other sister about I only ever knew sadness and anger.
Yeah. I noticed that more in my marriage where a marriage, you have to know how to talk, and you have to know how to communicate, and you have to know how to name your feelings. I remember my husband asking me, "Well, what do you feel?" And I just remember saying, "I'm mad," or I'm sad," and obviously underneath that were so many other emotions that were accurately expressing how I was feeling, but I just didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't even know something was wrong. We grew up in an atmosphere where everyone was just mad all the time, so why can't I just be mad all the time?
Yeah, and also this feeling of don't ever talk about your feelings, don't be a bother, don't express, just shove it down and it'll go
Bury it,
away,
bury it deep, and I remember at 17, I met my now husband, and I like how you say yours was love at first sight because I remember mine was not love at first sight at all, which I've told him, I've told him, like, "I didn't love you when we first met," and honestly, at that point, I feel like I didn't love him because I didn't know what love was. Yeah. I didn't know what it was like to feel love because I remember feeling love because I had to love. I love my sisters because I have to love my sisters, or,
Right,
like, I love my parents because I
exactly.
have to love my
Yeah.
parents, but I didn't know what real love was. So, I remember meeting him, and I didn't love him. I wasn't even sure I liked him because I didn't know what it felt like to like someone, and when I met him, I was just in this horrible stage of my life, and I did so many horrible things in our relationship that I carry so much guilt around, just so much regret, and He loved me so much,
Yeah.
and I was just not ready to be loved, and I was just not ready for what he was offering, and I just, to this day, feel so much guilt and so much regret because I remember I hurt him so bad, and I was just not ready, and like you said about your husband, my husband was and is the most genuine and amazing person, and he did not deserve all the things I did to him, and I just remember him being the first man to ever truly show me love, and he saw me for me. He didn't see me and love me because he had to. He loved me because he chose to love me, and he would always show up for me, like, even when I blew it up or even when we'd get in a fight or even when I would start random stuff with him, he always showed up for me, and he always showed me kindness, and part of me was like, "Okay, if I treat him really bad, he'll just leave me."
Yeah.
Like, I won't have to deal with it
Yeah.
anymore. But I just remember him showing me so much empathy, and in our family, empathy does not exist. So him showing me so much empathy just completely changed the trajectory of my life. And as an 18-year-old, like, Mexican girl who spent so many of her formative years alone with no empathy, I just didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to respond to him, and I would just see him as someone who was gonna leave. He was gonna figure out I had all these problems,
Yeah.
and he was
You're
gonna
just
leave me.
waiting for it.
I
You're
was
just
just waiting for it. I'm not gonna get attached because he's just gonna leave me, you know? And it's funny because you told a story of how you fell in love with your husband and married him after 6 months, and I fell in love with mine, and I just blew it up. Just so many times, just blew it up because I just didn't think I deserved it, and I didn't think I deserved all that love he had to give. And we met at 17, started dating at 18, and when I was 20, living abroad, we would talk every day. At this point, we were talking just, like, on our regular phone, and we didn't know that his phone plan didn't cover international calls, so every month he had to pay $800
Oh.
because we would talk all the time, like, literally every day, all day. And so he changed obviously to WhatsApp because we didn't know that his
Yeah.
phone didn't cover internationals. So he paid that bill and he was happy. He was happy paying that bill.
Later, he had told my mom that story, and my mom was like, "You know, you could have just told them and they wouldn't have charged you." And he was like, "I was fine."
He
He
paid it
didn't
happily.
care.
He did not care. And at that point, he was making like $3,000 a month. So there goes half of his paycheck, just like, and he just didn't care. Like he was just so happy, and he was so happy that I went and was so like supportive of me. And a big turning point in my life was when I went to Morocco. I remember being in Morocco and I was like, "What am I doing here?" My mom didn't know I had gone. My phone didn't work because I didn't have any service, so I was basically alone. I had paid to go on this, like, excursion trip with a bunch of other people, so there was, like, very nice Canadians on the trip, and I vividly remember sitting in the Sahara Desert by myself. My phone didn't work, so I couldn't talk to anybody, and living in this generation now, we constantly just talk to people on the phone.
Yeah,
So, I was forced to just sit there with my own thoughts,
that's so
and
scary.
it was very scary, and I was looking around, and for miles, it was just sand, and it was 5 AM, we were getting ready to leave, and I was sitting alone, watching the sunrise, and at that point, I hadn't talked to my husband in 5 days because I didn't have any service, and I just remember thinking, "Wow, I wish he was here." I had never in my life ever felt like, "I wish someone was with me," because every time someone was with me, like, I just felt so bad about myself, or when someone of our family was with me, I just remember feeling so lonely even though I was with someone, and here's this guy, I wish he was with me. I wish that he could do all of these things with me, and in that moment, I knew he is the person that I wanna spend, like, the rest of my life with, and he's the person that has made me feel the most seen and the most supported and the most accompanied ever, and when I got back, I remember calling him, and I just told him, "I really, really love you." Like, I probably could never have the words to explain to you what you mean to me, but You're it. You're everything for me. And fast forward to me turning 22, I was about to graduate from my undergraduate degree and just really thinking about life. I was really thinking, what are my next steps? What am I gonna do with my life? I don't think anyone from the family knows, or I don't think you know, but I had applied to continue my education in San Diego. I applied to a master's program, and it was always my dream to move. I always wanted to move. I always wanted to get out of here and, pack my bag and never come back. And I actually got in to a
Wow.
school in San Diego, and I didn't know if I was gonna go. I just applied just for fun, and I applied thinking I wasn't gonna get in, so I ended up getting in, and my husband at that time, we were just dating. He was 100% supportive of me. He was like, "You should go, you should do it, like, I'll visit you on the weekends, and you can come visit me." He was just so supportive, and then in March, before I graduated, I found out I was pregnant with my first child, and my whole world just stopped, and I remember being so scared. I remember telling you, and you were the first person to know. No one knew, and I just it just took me back to that moment of shame, and I just felt so ashamed. I felt I was just messing up my entire life and just thinking, "What am I supposed to do now?" You know? And I was just terrified. I was so scared, and obviously, we come here to be honest, so I was thinking about exercising my right to choose, and I really thought about it, and I really contemplated it, and at the end, I decided to have her, and obviously, I don't regret it. She is just so much sunshine in my life. She has just shown me what unconditional love is, and she just is so happy all the time, and I love her, and I have never loved anyone the way I love her. And obviously, I had to adjust my plans. I But my husband, he was still so supportive of me going to school and furthering my education, and so I applied to a master's program. I was, like, 100 months pregnant when I had my interview for school. I was 8 and a half months pregnant, interviewing. I was sitting in my interview. I remember being asked all these questions, and my pregnancy brain was like, "What did you just say?"
Do not compute.
Don't compute what you're saying. And I felt so defeated. I was like, "I'm not gonna get in." I blew that interview. That was so bad. And I ended up getting in. I started my master's program when my daughter was 2 months old, which is crazy now that I think
Yeah.
about it. Driving on no sleep, doing assignments. I was barely living. I just look back at that time, and I can't remember anything that I learned in those months. But that brings us to today. I am finishing up my first year of my program.
Nice.
Started a weight loss journey. My daughter's turning 1. My husband and I are celebrating our first year anniversary, and we're running a successful business.
Yes.
And
We have no time for
we
this.
have absolutely 0 time for this, but it would be an understatement to say that this year has been so hard. I feel like for both of us, this has been, like,
Yeah.
such a hard year, and I just really hope this podcast gives us an opportunity to just connect and just to even if it's just, like, an hour, just sit here and be together. Because, like I said at the beginning, the world is so hard
Yeah.
that we don't
Interesting because we see each other every single week, sometimes multiple times a week,
multiple
and I knew maybe 20% of what you talked about because we grew up in a house where everything was superficial. We would never talk about deep problems or things going on in our life, and there's so much going and we are 2 of 4. 4 we have there's 4 girls, and there's so much place for support, but we can't ask for it, and we or at least I feel like I can't talk to anybody about my problems because you got your own problems
Yeah.
and everyone got their own problems. You don't have time for my problems. And it's this feeling of even though we have this big family, this just recurring feeling of, but we're still so lonely.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. And I've been on this healing journey, really actually doing the work for a year now, and it's still very hard for me to ask for help or to talk about how I'm feeling. So I think when we started this podcast and I'm off social media myself, and I told you, like, I even if this is just for us, for a hobby, just to come and have something to do outside of our busy life, that is more than enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like the world of mental health has really opened up, like, a lot, but kind of to go back to the beginning of my story, like, you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes, like, and it happens to me, I come across a podcast that really just changes the way that I read a book, or I think after that whole scam thing had happened to us, I read a really good book about investing, and it kind of brings you back to the place, like, I wish I would have known this sooner, but if you don't know, you don't even know what to ask. You don't even, you just don't know what you don't know. And so it's hard. And I hope that people can just listen to the stories, and we're gonna have guests on to talk about also we've been through a lot collectively. Yes. Yeah.
And we'll be talking about the things that we have been through, and sharing more about our story on Patreon. But we're gonna have guests on to talk about their story, and maybe some will hear it, and the next time they're put in a similar situation, they'll have resources, or they'll have things that come to their mind that as red flags or green flags, so that they can make a better informed decision, which is what I'm hoping for this podcast.
But I had so much fun today,
Thank you
and this
so
was an amazing experience.
Yes, thank you for coming on this journey with me. I'm really excited.
Me too.
Well, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe to our podcast so you can know when episodes drop. We're going to be dropping episodes every Monday.